Enrique,
Jose Acosta.
and today we have a very special topic that we want to talk about. I don't know if you guys saw the flyer that we made a couple days ago, but we're going to be talking about Palm Sunday, but it's going to have a twist. We're going to be talking about Breaking Bad. And it's not that Jesus broke bad, but we are Breaking Bad. No, we really like the show. Jose and I watched it a few years ago, and we've been very big fans. And we think that even though it's a show that portrays a lot of violence and a lot of things, it really has a lot of good Christian lessons that one can take from the show, and a lot of things that we can reflect upon. Um, so first thing that we want to talk about is that today is Palm Sunday. So Palm Sunday is a celebration when Jesus came to Jerusalem and he was regarded as the Messiah. Came in riding a donkey, and people were celebrating him. He had a lot of fans at this point, so he was at the top of his game, as big as he got when he was on Earth. So what do you think, Jose? What are some parallels that you see between Jesus and Walter White, especially at the point, at the
The
maximum
peak.
point of their height? Yeah.
That they had everything. They were doing everything correctly, doing everything right.
I think Walter
So,
was doing everything right.
well, for his for his thing that he was doing,
Okay,
it's
so
not that he was doing something good, but he was
according
doing
to
it
his
good.
plan,
Yeah,
right? According to his own, I guess he didn't really have much of a moral compass at that
yeah,
point, but he had a plan and he
exactly.
had something he wanted to accomplish. So what would you say was Walter's peak? When is the episode that you're like, okay, this is as high as Walter got. There's no going
Oh,
going from there.
when were they making millions?
When they were
Oh,
making
yeah,
millions?
and laundering a lot of money with their
Okay.
businesses and all that stuff.
Yeah, you think
That's the peak.
after they killed Gus Fring, or right when they were still working with him, or when would just
When
put
they
it
were
more?
working with him.
When they were
Yeah,
working with Fring, the thing with
yeah,
with Fring is that they had everything going. They were set up for success, and even if Gus and him, didn't see things eye to eye, and it's probable that Gus might have wanted to kill him later. It's also possible that he didn't. He would have been able to work with him for a long time. Um, he had been working with a lot of people in that way. And that's, I guess, kind of like how the mafias work in a sense. They don't like each other. They have deep hatred for each other sometimes, but they have common business interests. So they're forced to like work together.
they have to work together.
And I think, yeah, that's a really, really good point, because after they became independent, and yes, they were making more money, but there were more people gunning for Walter White. He had a higher profile, and it could come from anybody that he could either get betrayed or he could get ambushed or anything. Um, and I that's one thing I like about Vince Gilligan's writing, that you don't know where it's gonna go, right? If you're looking at Gus Fring dying, you're thinking, okay, so now Walter White is gonna be the main boss, and there's um the only person that might get in his way is the DEA with Hank and maybe Jesse. But at some point, I thought that the show was gonna end with a confrontation between Walter and Hank, right? They were gonna go up against each other,
Yeah.
but I'm glad it didn't, because it gave it more of a real sense to the show, right? It made it keep you engaged, right? It's not predictable. So what do you think about the Nazis that killed Hank? Was that something that you expected, or was that something that kind of caught you off guard too?
Caught me off guard, yeah. Because, well, since everybody was working on the drugs, and then they were like the last people to probably to kill him, but since
Right,
they were there, like that
they
coincidence,
intersected
yeah,
at the right point to be
yeah.
able to,
So that happened.
right? And it kind of relates to the Jesus story as well, because at some point, Judas is mentioned in the Gospels before, the Last Supper,
Yeah.
but he's not like this main character, this main antagonist that you're looking at and you're thinking, oh, Judas is gonna be it. And one of the things that I've always found interesting is there's this theory out there that he didn't do anything wrong. I know a lot of people
Criticize him.
criticize Judas and they want to satanize him, and they say no, Judas is like a devil already. He's the one that betrayed Jesus. That's as bad as you can get. Well, to me it's very complicated because I see Jesus kind of told them that, right? He said, whoever I give this bread to is the one that's going to betray me. And then he gives the bread to Judas. So if you're Judas,
I
okay,
don't want it.
right? Let somebody else do it. But wouldn't that put you in a weird position? He is God and he came to the earth specifically to die for your sins. And he's giving you this task, right? In a sense, it's like Jesus told him, somebody's gonna have to betray me, and this is your task.
Probably he was the only one that could take all the blame and live with it. Well,
Right.
he
And
didn't live
he
long.
didn't. That's
Yeah,
that's the thing, and that's
actually.
what I guess was his like biggest sin. Because the other part, it is ambiguous. I don't think it's like a clear cut case that, oh, he was so evil so he betrayed Jesus.
Mhm.
Because I look at it like that. Okay, he was put in this weird position that everybody like knew he was going to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that he was going to be the one to betray him, and nobody talked him out of it, right? Nobody was like, okay, come here, Judas, let's talk about it. Let's maybe not do this. Let's work together. They just kind of let everything be, right? And they let Judas betray Jesus. Peter denied being a part of Jesus' disciples. So I don't know. Like, to me, the fact that Judas couldn't live with it afterwards
Yeah.
is kind of sad. And I guess he does bear some responsibility as how he acted afterwards, because he decided to completely step away from Christianity. He stepped away from um from Jesus, right? And some of the gospels say that he committed suicide.
Yeah.
So he probably had some major PTSD at that point. But it's strange. I mean, I wouldn't be one of those people that say that Judas is definitely, rotting in hell, or like, I wouldn't be too hard on him. I don't know what God decided to do with him afterwards, or how his soul is currently. But I feel kind of bad for him, to be
Yeah.
honest. He was given this like very, very tough mission. Like, you win if you lose if you do, you lose if you don't. There's no winning out of it. And that kind of happened in Breaking Bad too, right? You had a lot of situations where there was no right answer, and whatever the characters did, it was definitely gonna mess up something with somebody else. One of the things that one of the guys I kind of felt sorry for was Gale. He was the chemist that was working with Walter White, and he was a good guy. He was, making drugs and everything, but he didn't hate anybody.
He's just a worker.
He was just a worker. He was not malicious in any way. He wasn't trying to um be, I guess, that ambitious as to like be the biggest drug pen in Albuquerque or anything like that. He was just doing his job. And he happened to be the other chemist that was really good at making meth. But at some point, the plot turns it so that it's either him or Walter, and I guess Jesse too, and it's part of Walter's team. So Jesse Pinkman decides to end Gale, and they keep the job. So I guess the other thing that we wanted to talk about is that Jesus had a lot of people that were worshiping him, right? And he had a lot of people that were following him and were part of his inner circle. Do you think that if Walter would have had a little bit more of a network of people that work for him, he would have been better off, or do you think he was better off closing himself up a little bit more? Because I think once Walter started, after they killed Gus and they started working with the Nazis and they started working with Lydia to send the drugs to Europe and everything, he kind of opened himself up a little bit more, even though he was still making a lot of money.
Hmm, hard to tell.
It's hard to tell, right? But for your preference, do you think he would have been better off just
Working
working
for Gus?
for Gus or working either for
Yes.
themselves but just on a smaller scale? Or do you think it was good that he expanded in that sense?
If he, well, since he expanded, it's more people that want their money, we want their power. So
More people that want to work
yeah,
for him,
that's how it works on the cartels and all that stuff. So if he would have done just a small thing like he was doing, he would probably be
He would have been.
alive. But since
Oh, he had
that's not that,
cancer too.
oh yeah,
Right.
he came back.
Yeah.
So that's another.
And that's the other thing too, right? Walter's White Dead. You were thinking, okay, if he's not gonna go up against Hank, then he's gonna go up against Jesse. And if not, then cancer will get him for sure.
So
But it's none of them, right? So
he had,
Vince kept it interesting,
yeah, he had like a choice, but not a choice.
right?
So he did everything for because of the cancer, and then he was doing it because of him, and now
Because he
again the
liked it.
cancer again, so he was doing it again. So everything changed.
Everything changed when that happened. All right, so I guess if we can learn something from Palm Sunday and from Breaking Bad, it's that we need to work together. We need to work with other people, but we need to have clear missions and we need to have um, God in with us, right? Because Walter, he started Breaking Bad, he started doing all these bad things, and that's when more and more problems came for his family, for him, and you know who knows, he had many choices. He could have gone to work with his friends at Grey Matter, or his, I guess they were kind of like friends, rivals with him, right?
Mhm.
They were not on the best terms.
Or just work and that's it.
Or he could have just kept working at his school and gone into debt, but had died, and his family would probably not have been obligated to pay off any of the debt from his cancer, right? That I think that the medical bills, they go away once people die. So I mean, he decided to go down the path that he did. We don't know what happened to the money, right? The people from Gray Matter kept it, but we don't know if they actually were going to give it to his children. So it may have been all for nothing, right? He lost way more than he ever gained, but he gained that power and that authority that he had
He
been
wanted.
craving his whole life, right? um, be humble. Make sure that you don't go down a dark path in search of your ambitions, because it can easily corrupt you and give you things that you never expected to get. All right. I guess that's our episode for today. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, YouTube. Soon we'll be making an Instagram. And thank you so much for watching.